Hi guys, I'm Dr. Kiana from Indara Naturals, and in today's video we're going to be talking about 10 hair care mistakes that you could be making that are keeping you from reaching your hair growth or length goals. So if you're someone who doesn't care about length, or you don't mind cutting your hair and starting over, then these tips might not apply to you. But if you're on a hair growth journey, you have a specific length that you're trying to get to, maybe you've been stuck at the same length for a while, these are some mistakes that you could be making that are keeping you from reaching that goal. So if you find the video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and if you have any questions for me, make sure you leave them below in the comments. Also, I'm going to try to go through these kind of quickly, so if there's anything that you have more questions about or you want me to elaborate on, let me know that in the comments as well, and maybe I can make a separate video just on that topic. So the first one we're going to talk about is using too much heat. So you want to make sure that you're not always using the highest heat setting on your blow dryer or your flat iron. For blow drying, it is perfectly fine to blow dry on low heat. You don't always have to use the high heat setting. And for your flat iron, I like to recommend flat ironing on 400 degrees or below. I very rarely see the need for flat ironing your hair on 450 degrees or higher. A lot of times, if you find that you need to go over 400 degrees to get your hair straight, usually that's a sign that your hair is damaged in some way or it's not hydrated enough. So what I would recommend is getting on a good deep conditioning regimen, and then trying it again at lower heat. Also, you don't want to use heat on your hair too frequently. So once a month is the most that I would recommend. I wouldn't use any heat tools more often than once a month. And once you straighten your hair, you don't want to keep going back throughout the week and touching it up with a flat iron or curling it with a flat iron. So try to limit your heat use to no more than once a month. Stretch it out longer if you can, and make sure that you're not always using the highest heat setting on your blow dryer or your flat iron. All right, number 2 is trimming your hair too frequently. So you don't need to trim your hair every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks. Usually, if you're finding that you need to trim that often, it's because you have some existing damage, and you're trying to get rid of that. And that's fine to do if you want to trim away your damage gradually over time. But just for maintenance, you shouldn't need to trim your hair that frequently. So you want to try to get on a schedule where you're trimming maybe every 12 weeks, every 16 weeks. And if you are trimming more frequently, then you should only be trimming a very small amount each time, like a 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch, not an inch or more. If you're trimming that much, that often, you're never going to be able to retain any length. And usually it's just not necessary for your hair. Now, tip number 3 would be never trimming. So this is another mistake. So you don't want to trim too frequently, but you also don't want to go years without trimming. Your hair, no matter how careful you are, no matter how much you baby your hair is going through some wear and tear on a daily basis. It's rubbing up against your clothes. Your hands are in it, you're combing it, you're brushing it. Your ends are going to get damaged no matter how careful you are. So you do need to trim your hair on some kind of a schedule, but you don't want it to be too often. So I recommend, like I said, every 12 weeks, every 16 weeks, at least be going in and assessing your ends, checking for split ends, checking for breakage, checking for single strand knots, and just see if you need a trim. If it feels rough when you run your hand down the length of your hair, that's an indication that you need to trim. So you don't want to go a whole year or 2 years without doing any maintenance to your ends, but you also don't want to trim too frequently. So you need to find that balance, so that your hair is taken care of, but you're not cutting off all of your progress. Okay, number 4 is not deep conditioning. I am a strong proponent of deep conditioning. I have another video that talks about why you need to deep condition, but deep conditioning is so important for keeping your hair hydrated, just keeping it soft and healthy. It helps prevent breakage. It helps to repair that day-to-day damage that's happening to your hair. So you want to be deep conditioning at least once a month, every 2 weeks if you can. If you're starting with very dry or damaged hair, you want to deep condition once a week. And then once your hair gets to a healthier state, you can spread those out to maybe every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. But you should be deep conditioning on some kind of regular basis. If your hair is super healthy, it's in tip-top shape, maybe you only need to deep condition once every 3 months or once every 6 months. But for most people, once a month is going to be a good schedule. So you want to make sure that you're deep conditioning at least sometimes. The next one, number 5, is chasing perfection. So this is a mistake that I see a lot of people making, that they want their hair to always look perfect. You want every hair to be in place. You want your edges to be perfectly laid. You want your bun or your ponytail to be perfectly slicked back. You want your twist out to be perfectly defined, or you want your wash and go to be perfectly defined. And with curly hair, it's very hard to maintain that level of perfection all the time. Now, I don't believe that you should be like so natural that you just, roll out of bed and go, that you just don't do anything at all to your hair. You don't style it at all. You don't do any kind of maintenance. I'm not advocating for that. But at the same time, you don't want to be overly concerned about frizz, about your edges, about every hair being in place, because what that does is it just leads to over manipulation, over styling, pulling your hair too tightly to get it to lay the way that you want. And it just, over time, it leads to breakage, damage, and thinning. So you want your hair to look presentable, right? You want to have some kind of polish, some kind of style. You want to put some effort into it, but it's not necessary to redo your twist out every night, to redo your wash and go every morning, to detangle your hair every 2 or 3 days. Those things are not necessary. To have your bun, pulled so tightly that you can't blink, and, your hair braided so tightly that every hair is pulled into a braid. Some level of frizz is okay. Your edges don't have to be perfectly sculpted at all times. So you want to find a healthy balance to where, your hair looks presentable, you feel good about yourself, but you don't want to be stressing your hair follicles and your hair strands so much that you're causing damage and breakage. Okay, we are on I'm looking at my list so that I make sure that I don't forget anything. Okay, so now we're on number 6. Number 6 is controversial, kind of. The number 6 mistake is hating your hair texture, your curl pattern, whatever you want to call it. You are never going to be able to get to the length that you want if you don't embrace your natural hair, your natural curl pattern, and work with it instead of fighting against it, trying to make it look like something else. It's, important to be gentle with your hair. And again, you don't want to over style it, you don't want to over manipulate it, and you don't want to spend so much time trying to change the way your hair looks that you're causing breakage, damage, thinning, things like that are going to keep you from getting to your length goals. So it's really important to find some hairstyles that work with your hair type. Find some styles that you can do easily, that don't pull on your hair follicles or stress your hair out. And just make sure that you're working with your hair texture, whether your hair is fine, if it's naturally thin, if it's coarse, if it's kinky. You need to work with what you have and not try to make it look like something else. So when you are working against your hair natural tendencies, then that leads to over manipulation, which leads to damage and breakage. Next, we have forgetting about length retention. So a lot of times when people ask me questions about their hair, they are asking me for ways to make their hair grow faster. And I do offer a growth oil. I have a regular strength oil. I have an extra strength oil for people who are suffering from hair loss or thinning. But I always stress that yes, you can use these growth oils, and they are essential oil blends. They will stimulate hair growth. But even more important than making your hair grow faster is keeping the hair that you have healthy so that it doesn't break off, it's not damaged, you don't have to cut it, and then that way the hair that's growing from your root is staying on your head long enough for you to get to your length goals. So if you're damaging your ends, then you're constantly having to trim or cut, or you're getting breakage and you're not seeing any progress. Your hair is growing, but you're not seeing any changes in your length because you're getting a lot of breakage at the ends. So length retention is just as important, if not more important, than hair growth. So in order to retain length, you want to be, doing all the things that we've already talked about. You want to be deep conditioning. You want to be gentle with your hair. You don't want to be using too much heat. But focusing on protecting your ends and preventing breakage and split ends and single strand knots, those are the things that are going to help you get over those humps, where you get stuck at one length. You want to get beyond that. You have to make sure that you're babying and protecting your ends. The next mistake that I see a lot of people making involves protective styling. So I really am not a fan of wigs, weaves, or braids as a means of protective styling. If you're doing it just for convenience, or you're not really concerned about length, that's fine. But when you're trying to grow your hair longer, a lot of times protective styles work against that, because you leave them in for so long that your hair starts to dry out. You get some breakage, you get thinning, you get matting, and then when you take it down, you're getting a lot of breakage when you're trying to comb through your hair. You find that your hair is dry, it's brittle. A lot of these styles are pulling out your edges, which are a very delicate part, generally the most delicate part of your hair, and also at the crown. A lot of people have thinning there because these styles are so tight, and they're pulling at the hair follicle. They're causing stress on your hair and your scalp. And there's just a lot of problems that can come with long-term protective styles. So yes, we want to have low manipulation styles like twist outs, two-strand twists. Braids are fine. I prefer braiding just your natural hair, but you want to have a style that's going to give you access to your hair, allow you to wash it at least every 1 to 2 weeks, allow you to moisturize, to put some oil on your ends, to detangle when you need to. And so these long-term protective styles that you can leave in for weeks or months at a time usually are going to work against your length goals. So if you are protective styling, you want to be very careful about what style you choose and how long you leave it in, and just making sure that you have access to cleanse and moisturize your hair and scalp during that process. And then where are we? Okay, now we're on number 9. So number 9, this mistake involves your products. So you want to make sure that you are reading your ingredient labels. Not reading your ingredient labels and knowing what's in your products is a big mistake that I see a lot of people making. All of these hair care products that are on the market, they make all these grand claims on the front label, but that back label where the ingredients are, that's what really tells the story. And a lot of these products that you guys are using are nothing but water and fillers, and then a little bit of active ingredient way down at the bottom, just enough for them to be able to say, oh, this contains, whatever ingredient, but not really enough to do anything for your hair. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to your ingredient labels, reading them, and getting a sense of how much active ingredient is actually in this product. Is this something that can really penetrate my hair, hydrate my hair, and, do something beneficial for my hair, or is it just water and fillers? So you want to make sure that you are reading your ingredient labels. And then number 10 is overcomplicating your regimen. A simple regimen is really all you need to get your hair to the length that you want. You don't need a ton of products. You don't need to spend hours and hours working on your hair. If you are finding that your wash day takes all day long, that your hair is always tangled, your hair is always dry. Those are issues that do need to be addressed, but the answer generally is not adding another step to your regimen or adding more products. Maybe you need higher quality products, maybe you need products with higher quality ingredients, maybe you need different tools, a better comb, a better blow dryer, things like that. But your regimen doesn't need to be 10 steps long. It shouldn't take all day. For me at Endara Naturals, I'm always focusing on simple. We have a simple regimen, 3-step wash day, light oils that are easy to use, don't add any real time to your regimen. But we are focused on simplicity. So if you have an overly complicated regimen and you're trying to pare it down to something that's a little bit more manageable, a little bit more practical, then I'm always open to talk to you guys about what it is that you're doing, how you can improve it, how you can make it better. So if you have questions about your regimen, you can leave those questions in the comments below, or you can email me at contact@endaranaturals.com. and I'll help you work through, whatever issues you're having with your hair. If you're struggling to get to the length that you want, we can talk about that too. And I'll link below my website, the products that I'm using on my hair, the products that we offer at Endara Naturals, and you can see if those products would be a good fit for you. So thank you all for watching. And again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comment box below or send me an email, and I will see you guys in the next video.